Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. Delighted to have your company. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff is here with us, Tam McManus and Alison McConnell. Give us your thoughts on the weekend's football from your favourite team. There's only one major talking point that I know a number of people want to get their teeth into, but there are indeed other Premiership fixtures to talk about as well. But the big one between Celtic and Rangers, is it Rangers favourites for the title now? Can anyone stop them? Will they lose another game? Are Celtic in disarray? So many questions regarding the big game. You can give us your thoughts on that. And elsewhere, Dundee United and Aberdeen couldn't actually get the goals. What about St Johnstone? They're scoring goals for fun. Stevie May with a couple as well. Give us your thoughts on all the weekend's fixtures. We'll be talking football and we'll be reading out as many of your points of view on our Facebook Live as possible. You like, share and follow on Facebook. If you subscribe on our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit the bell on it. Then we will be absolutely delighted. So I got it wrong. I'm going to hold my hands up. I thought Celtic would win the game. I said that on Friday. I had to stick by it on Saturday's broadcast. But when I saw the teams, I thought, oof, I might turn here, Roughie. But if I decided to change my mind, Roughie, I would have got it in the neck. The best team won. And I think today's programme, predominantly at the start, Roughie, should be about what Rangers did rather than people looking for the problems of Celtic.
Yeah, there's no excuses for the Celtic camp. They can say, obviously, there were maybe 2 or 3 players short, but that's no excuse for the player pool that they have available in this game. They just didn't turn up, and all credit goes to Rangers. You know, right from the start, you know, they dominated the game and never ever looked like losing it. Obviously, Celtic have got have to look at themselves. I think Neil Lennon will seriously have to look at his team, you know, and find out where it's gone wrong. But the forum team won for me. Rangers have been the forum team this year. They've been convincing at home. They've been convincing in Europe. You know, they haven't been losing goals. Exact opposite for Celtic. Everybody was raving about the late goals against St Johnstone. To me, that proves that a team's not playing well when you have to wait that late in a game to get a win. Even in Europe, they've been stuttering, 1-0 here. So, no, the foreign team for me won on the day, and the big players for me were Davis and Kamara.
Here's what Steven Gerrard said on the performance after the game.
I'm extremely happy with the outcome. Fantastic results. 3 important points to what we've come for. We give the players a game plan in a short space of time. It wasn't too much different to what we've been doing against this type of opposition, who were good. But the players have gone out and carried it out. A mature performance, a professional performance. We've been, you know, relatively quiet throughout the 90 minutes, considering what you normally face here. So the players deserve credit for the 3 points, for the result and the performance.
8-11 on with the bookies now. I'll tell you the difference this time around, Tam. And this is why I think we've got a title race between these two this time around. Steven Gerrard came out and that press conference was so different from the last time they won at Celtic Park in December of last year. There was humility. There was a calmness about him. There was no jumping the gun and thinking, you know, this is it. He emphasised 3 points. They were well organised. They stuck to a game plan. And Ryan Fraser said something about the Scotland camp which resonated with me. Ryan Fraser said everybody wants to be involved with Steve Clarke and the Scotland team now because, you know, they're playing for as a team. They're not playing for each, you know, for themselves. They're playing as a team. And I think this time around, Steven Gerrard and Gary McAllister have got this team playing for the management team. They are all in it together now. That's the difference this time around. I think they all want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think it was a very professional performance from Rangers. As you said, last season when Rangers won at Parkhead, Steven Gerrard was screaming into the camera. If you all remember that one, and they got a bit of abuse for that because nothing was won. And I think they didn't show any humility at all. After the game, they went to Dubai, came back, and I thought they were a little bit Billy Big Time, to be honest. They went out and expected to win games, didn't work hard, and they got found out. And they deserved it. Me won the title, won the league last season. But I think then it's totally different. I think they've learned from their mistakes. As you said, Steven Gerrard, very calm and composed there in his post-match interview. There was no hysterics, what we're going to do this, do that. It was another game ticked off, another 3 points. And you can just tell, I agree with you, you can just tell that Rangers are a different animal this season. I don't think they'll get above themselves. And I think they'll take each game as it comes. And Celtic, listen, they've got a real title race on their hands this season, because for me, Rangers are favourites now. I said that before the game. Whoever won this game would be favourites, and the way Rangers played a very, very comfortable 2-0 victory makes them big favourites in my eyes.
Yeah, and when we were talking to Steven Gerrard after the game, the question was put to him about the big unanswered question, which is quite simply, you can win an Old Firm game, but can you continue to win the games that you didn't win last season? And the question was, are there lessons that have been learned from last season's collapse to now?
I'm not sure lessons the right thing, but listen, we need to move on from this result pretty quickly. We've got a tough game on Thursday. The lads can enjoy the night today. They've got a day off tomorrow, recover, and we get ready for another big challenge. There'll be no one getting carried away. There'll be no one. We need to be humble and remember what's gone on over the last 2 years, and there's still an awful lot of work to do.
Well, if you're talking about game plans, Alisson, Kamara and Davis have been mentioned by Roughie, but again, Celtic couldn't play through the middle of that midfield. They kept them pushed out wide, and then they were able to deal with anything that Celtic threw at them. I thought they were so well organised and so well set during the game. I thought they could have won by more than 2, Alisson.
I agree with you. I think they were very comfortable. They were very dominant. I think what you're seeing is a Rangers side who are very well coached, who are receptive to the system that they play. They've worked on that system now for the guts of 2 years, as Conor Goldson had reflected after the game. That 4-3-3 is a system that has reaped so much success against Celtic, and I think that's the last 3 successive Celtic Rangers games. Celtic have toiled in the middle of the park. They've toiled to get any foothold there, and Rangers have really ran over the top of them. I had expected last week that Cham would start for that very reason, but I thought it was a fairly ineffective move in personnel because the system still suited Rangers, and I think that is serious food for thought going forward. And as they go into the next game at Christmas time, I'd be surprised if Celtic still stuck to the same system, because it clearly shows up the deficiencies that are there. It's not worked. It's allowed Rangers to take a firm control of the game, particularly in the middle of the park. And if you lose the battle there, you're always going to struggle to create chances and bring your forwards into play. And the stat on Saturday that I think would probably be the most galling for anyone is the fact that Celtic didn't have a single shot on target throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes. That's an appalling stat. It's a horrible watch if you're a Celtic fan. And I think many fans will accept losing a game, they'll accept losing to your big rivals, but there's a manner in which you have to do it. And I think it was the insipidness of the performance that will really have stuck in the craw.
Well, I have to tell you, Roughie, there are 10 games between now and the next Old Firm game on January the 2nd at Ibrox. And this is the key to it all, I think, Roughie. You can have a 4-point advantage. Celtic have a game in hand. I don't think anybody hands out titles in October, Roughie, to be perfectly honest with you. But this is a huge shot in the arm. And now Rangers have got Livingston, Killie, Hamilton and Aberdeen on the horizon. And this is the big test, Roughie. Looking at Rangers now and seeing the way he's got them organised, can he get them to keep the machine rolling, keep winning the games and keep their noses out in front?
Well, I think as we've all discussed there in Steven Gerrard's interview there, it's lessons learned from last year. He's keeping everything low key. They've heard the criticism. They've heard everything that get thrown at them in January. Everybody's saying this and saying that and why it went wrong and why. And as a collective in a football team, you all get together and you prove everybody wrong, and that's what they're doing. They've got their heads down. And I've said this before, I think the rest of the league, the bottom 6, aren't strong enough to compete with Rangers and Celtic. I think the hardest games they're going to get are probably away to Hibs, away to Aberdeen, possibly away to Motherwell. I think the other games will be a stroll in the park for them. So that's why these Rangers-Celtic games are so important.
Well, we're about to find out if the lessons are learned, Roughie, after another Old Firm game. And this is the key that I think Steven Gerrard was quick to point out there. It's, keeping everything on the ground. It's 3 points. And that's what he was saying after the game. It's a 3-point game. And now you've got 4-point advantage, one game at a time. Billy says Rangers won at a canter. And a lot of the messages we've got, a lot of Rangers fans, if Rangers went up a gear, it would have been a drubbing, says John McConaughey. Afternoon, boys, we did well on Saturday, says Sandy Powell. And Stephen Gourley says, I wish we played Celtic every week. And I think Rangers fans, I think, are right, especially on this forum here on the Facebook. I think they're right to be enjoying it, enjoying the moment, and celebrating the way the team played, because they were in total control. It was 2 going on 3-4. And I think, you'll have to look at that great move where Kent almost made it 3 as well. But Rangers certainly dominated the game. What about the Celtic camp then? Reading out a few messages there. The one thing I would say is there's a good few on here talking about Neil Lennon being tactically naive. And, I've been reading some people saying, it's time for him to go. I mean, I've never heard so much nonsense in all my life. Here's what Neil Lennon had to make of the defeat against Rangers.
Well, we give away poor goals, and that's in essence the game in a nutshell. Poor, really poor from the set play early on in the game, and so bitterly disappointed with that. And then we did okay, and we missed a great chance to equalise, and I thought we deserved to come in at least level at half time. Second goal's really poor, second face from a corner we haven't dealt with, and one we didn't stop the cross, and 2 we didn't get first contact, and I felt that was the difference between the two teams. I thought Rangers defended crosses and defended the box better than us.
Okay, that's his assessment of the game overall. He was a little bit miffed about the mole. I mean, there's a number of people on here saying, Peter, are you the mole? With regards to the team leak. Listen, Roughie, you and Tam have been long enough in the tooth in the game as well about people leaking out teams and who's going to start. It can come from anywhere. It can come from a throwaway line from a coach to a member of their family, or an agent and a player to an agent, with regards to the starting lineup. You still have to do the job. I don't think that was a deciding factor in Celtic's defeat.
No, I don't think it was either. I think on the day, Neil will be honest enough to say there's certain players never played well. I said before the game, big players win big games, and there was no big players and Celtic turned up. Unfortunately, Callum McGregor, who's a big player in these games, didn't produce the form that he was producing. Maybe it's the fact with the Scotland games, all these games, maybe he'd run out of puff a wee bit. Scott Brown didn't dominate anywhere near what he usually does in these games. Kamala and Elanusi, I mean, if you cast your mind back to the first goal, I don't know for the life of me why they two were in the 6-yard box picking up people. So these are things that have got to be answered. The goalkeeper at the first goal could have done better as well. Another question people are asking, is he better than Craig Gordon? Should they stick by Craig Gordon and give him the contract he deserved? Because it's a lot of money to lay out for somebody who's not done anything at all to impress anybody.
Well, let me say this to you. A lot of people, Celtic didn't get out of second gear this year, says Fiona Docherty, who's a big Rangers fan. Stuart Ramsey, who's a Celtic fan, says, Peter, I watched the game, thought the quality of the whole game was poor. Rangers were better than us, but not fantastic. James Docherty can't make excuses for his team. They just didn't turn up. So lots of people, obviously, there are some people who like to gloat, and the patter is good on here, and we certainly enjoy a bit of banter after these games. If I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Tam, if there were real positives, and we're being really positive and deservedly so about the Rangers team, as far as the Celtic team, listening to the manager after it when he said the bench wasn't fit was alarming to me. I'm not sure if Barkas is a good goalkeeper. I certainly haven't seen evidence of it. Laxalt, I think, is exempt because he comes into his first Old Firm game. Frimpong wasn't at it. He looked like a little boy lost. And, I'm taking Stephen Welsh out of it because this is a debutant. This is a boy who's asked to get in and do a job there, and he tried to do it to the best of his ability. But the other two, I don't think Shane Duffy has added the solidity that Celtic were looking for just yet. I think Ayer allowed Goldson to run off him for the goal. The midfield three in Cham is one game every 4. You never know what you're getting with him. Good player that he is. He's not consistent and doesn't win games for you. And the front two, for me personally, Tam, I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, I got it in the neck for my statement about Odsonne Edouard being a man down since the start of the season. Lee Griffiths is unreliable. He may well have his problems off the park, but you cannot rely on somebody constantly to come in and just save you as a substitute. He may well get back to full fitness. He may well come into that starting lineup. And then you've got Klimala, who, for me, is not a Celtic player. He's not at the level that Celtic are looking for. So there's my assessment of the team. But I would say this, Tam. Neil Lennon said that some people don't want to be at Celtic. He has to clear them out. He has to get rid of them or he's going to lose the league. Because there are some players he mentioned in a European game, and I thought that was a strange thing for the manager to mention. Some players don't want to be there or are not pulling their weight. Well, he's got to get them out and hope they're not key players that could cost him the title.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I mean, I'll go back to the guys you ran through there. Barkas, I mean, his first real test, I thought, was Saturday against Rangers. I think he's horrendous at the first goal. He's got to save that, Peter. I look at David Marshall, who was available on a free transfer. He had 12 clean sheets in a row for Wigan at the tail end of last season, and he's just been outstanding for Scotland. He could have come up on a free. You spend $5 million on Barkas, I think it's a waste of money. I think you look at Shane Duffy. Again, I said in this show that if Celtic signed Shane Duffy, they would win the league. I don't think that's the case now. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as I thought he was going to be, Peter, because he's come up here and I thought he would be a big, aggressive centre-half, going and winning headers, going and clattering into people. I've not seen it yet. I've not seen that aggressiveness. I thought he was soft at the goals. The second goal, a little bit of a break of the ball, but he's trying diagonals, know his game. Give it into midfield, give it to people who can play. That's not your game. Middle of the park, again in Cham. In the big games, he's been good. In the smaller games, he's not been good. So I thought that was a gamble that Lennon took because and Cham's been great in Old Firm games in the past, to be honest. He's controlled them, never kicked the ball. And Klimala, again, I've said in this show, don't think he's anywhere near good enough for Celtic, and that was proved on Saturday. I mean, you could get somebody for the Gallagate to go up front and run about like he did. He done nothing for 60 minutes. He was rubbish. So I think that Lee Griffiths, I think you've got Lee Griffiths, how is he no fit? Tom Rogic, how are they no fit yet? I mean, what are they doing at Lennoxtown training-wise? Surely you're running them. Yeah. You're giving them fitness work, physical work, bounce games. How can they still not be fit? I don't understand
Just out of curiosity, Tam, could you give me the name of that boy from the Gallagate? Because we've got a big fives match this week, and I really feel as if I need that guy. I need a runner. And as simple as that, Tam. I just need his name. Who is the boy from the Gallagate?
Oh, anyway, I don't know.
Apart from anything else. Yeah, I do, absolutely. I'm being facetious. Listen, the one thing I would say to you is, of course, Sir Alex Ferguson said it many times, trophies are not handed out in October. This is the absolute joy of an Old Firm game. And I thought some of the Rangers banter, especially from Rangers Twitter account, giving it tight to, I think, the Green Brigade for posting posters everywhere. That's the banter that I think is good about the game, and all that is good about the game. But it's one game, and Neil Lennon reckons that they can bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done it before, but they can't live on the past either. This is the present now. We've got a title race on our hands, and we have to roll our sleeves up and do better. Because I thought we lacked a little bit of experience today, and we were a little bit naive in certain aspects of the game today.
Well, Robert Bald says Neil Lennon always has an excuse to deflect from his inability to change a game or have a plan B. He was the same at Hibs. Alison, he reckons they can bounce back from this. I've highlighted the problems that I think he has to address before there's any chance of bouncing back. What do you think?
I think crucially now is what happens this week. It's a massive week all of a sudden, and I'm not essentially referring to the game against AC Milan on Thursday night, but rather the trip to Pittodrie on Sunday, because I think that now is far weightier than it might have been. I think you cannot afford now to go and drop any more points. And what you have to see this week, and then a continuation from that, is a very thorough and robust bouncing back and a statement that you're prepared to roll up your sleeves and you're prepared to get back down to business. Now, they've done it in the aftermath of the game they lost to Rangers in December. They went away to Dubai, they came back, and I think their form until lockdown was was fairly blemish free. I thought they were excellent since he came back, and you have to kind of find that way to motor on again. I think you cannot overlook the fact that they were depleted in terms of personnel. I think when you're down, you've got James Forrest out, you've got Ryan Christie out, you've got Odsonne Edouard out. I don't think you can overlook the fact that it hinders you hugely. They should have been better. They should have had the depth to cope with it. They should have been able to take the game to Rangers and ask them questions. It should have been better. But what you have to do now is show a fairly robust reaction and go out on Thursday night and try and give a decent display against AC Milan. But you just cannot afford to drop anything now at Pittodrie.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make. I can understand what you're saying, because Mark McGee said to me at the weekend, in big games like this, he said, you cannot suffer the loss of maybe more than one key player. If you've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 in a big game, you need your best team on the park in Old Firm games. So I understand exactly where he was coming from with that point. But I agree with Steven Gerrard. This is a squad at Celtic. They spent a lot of money. It was a $5 million on Barkas. It was a $3 million on Klimala. You know, Shane Duffy is a Premier League player they've got on loan. £16 million loan player in El Yunusi. There are no excuses for the fact that some of those players should be playing better, and I think a lot of them were woeful. So I thought Steven Gerrard pinpointed that to try, and rightly so in my mind, not take away any of the gloss of what his team did at Celtic Park. They came with a game plan, and the boys that were talking about the back, I'm going to read Dougie's point out. Dougie obviously tongue-in-cheek says, Shane Duffy, he's a poor man's Andrew Considine, which gives you an indication of the way it's all going here. But I'll tell you one thing, at the back line, Roughie, every time that back three of Celtic played the ball slowly, they allowed Rangers to get themselves set in place, front, middle and back again. They were slow, methodical, and at times it was tiresome. And you could understand how easy it was for Rangers to set themselves against them. They allowed them just to play that slow ball, and then they were back in their positions to take them on again.
Yeah, I mean, that 3-5-2 is a very adventurous formation. And to go with three at the back, you've got to be confident that the three at the back understand the job that they're doing, and they understand the two people that are beside them. I don't think Celtic have got that. I don't think there's any, understanding between the three of them. They're all going out and doing their own thing. I mean, we all rave about the last time Celtic were 3-5-2, but the 3-5-2 they had three international football players at the top of their game playing in that three at the back. I don't think these three are anywhere near the standard that they three were. And that's possibly where the problem was. And I'm not saying it's a problem, Peter, but we've all spoke about it. And not one of you has mentioned Scott Brown. I think Scott Brown has been a tremendous player, but there comes a time when he has to be substituted. You've got the boy Turnbull there sitting, who would probably be more mobile in that game. And when he's not having a good game, I don't think it's a problem taking him off. I really don't.
Listen, it's not a problem, but Scott Brown wasn't the problem on Saturday. If Scott Brown was the problem, everybody would be screaming from the high heavens. I think he's an easy target, Ruffy. He wasn't the problem. I think he's earned
the right, for not to be knocked. But there are certain games when you've got to say, I'm sorry, Scott, it's not working. Off you come.
Well, it wasn't that game, Ruffy. It wasn't that game.
I thought Turnbull would have offered a wee bit more.
Well, Cham ran about and did nothing. I mean, that's the problem with that midfield. Callum McGregor, neat passes, couldn't go anywhere with it, was forced out left. Happily, Rangers were happy to get them out wide because they knew they weren't going to be able to play through them. And they were happy for them to throw crosses in because Goldson and Helander were on the top of their game. They were able to deal with anything they were throwing at them. And Klimala was worse than a man down. And then you've got a situation where you're hoping El Yunusi is going to create something. It was absolute cannon fodder for Rangers to mop it all up, and I don't think Scott Brown was the problem. Another thing, Tam, is the game kicked off and Rangers had three guys up front. He played a 4-3-3. I mean, great credit to the Rangers manager. He stuck Barker and he stuck Morelos and Kent on the three of them. I mean, I looked round and Gordon Greer was sitting next to me, the former Scotland international, played with Kilmarnock and Brighton. He looked at me and he went, It's 3 against 3 here. I mean, if Celtic lost the ball at any point in the midfield, suddenly you're thinking, how the hell are they going to defend this? I thought it was a great move. I thought he got his tactics spot on.
Yeah, listen, I think Rangers looked a very, very well coached team, Peter. I think the 4-3-3, they've been very, very consistent with that since Steven Gerrard's come in the door. They play at home and away. Whoever they're playing against, they play 4-3-3. Every single player knows his job on the ball, off the ball. You know, I noticed that when they came to Easter Road and they played Hibs, really, really impressed by the way they funneled back into position when they lost the ball and how big they made the pitch when they had the ball. And they were brave, as you said. They played 3 up against the 3 centre-backs. And that forced Celtic back. It's forced Celtic's 2 wing-backs back. So straight away, Rangers took the initiative, straight from the kick-off. So I believe that Rangers looked a better coached team. They looked tactically more, flexible. And Celtic looked as if it was a 3-5-2. Just go out and play. And we've got better players than Rangers, so just go and win. There was no rhyme or reason, with Celtic, the way they were playing. There was no flow of the game, no noticeable, this is a pattern of play, this is what we're trying to do today. I didn't see that from Celtic, Peter. I seen it from Rangers. They were getting the ball wide, and we got the ball wide. He tucked inside, and the 2 full-backs bombed outside them, Barisic and Tavernier. I didn't see any of that with Celtic. It was so poor.
Yeah, David Whitelaw says, Peter, you said last week both teams had poor defences. Only the Green side had a poor defence. David, I stand by what I'm saying. Connor Goldson scored 2 goals. Great credit to him. But you get chances if you've got creative players who are on it. And Rangers and Celtic's defence is not what it used to be. And I accept that we are in different times. But I think I watch most of these games and I don't let my eyes deceive me. And I certainly don't get wrapped up in some people who write and are full of blowhard on waving flags about certain players and the level they are at. We are watching a lower level of player now in Scottish football. And I wouldn't like to elevate some players in defence to the level that the last time Rangers won the title. My God, Richard Gough, you had some fabulous players that have played at the centre of defence for Rangers. And I go back to even Dick Advocaat's time. Amoruso had his faults, but he was 2 or 3 standards above Helander and Goldson, with all due respect to the boys. And to be fair, Steven Gerrard was quick to praise Connor Goldson. He scored 2 goals in the game, Alison. The one thing that I would say about this whole battle between the two of them is Richard Gough was interviewed and he was talking about winning 10 in a row. He says winning the 9 was hard. He says by the time we got to the 10, we were shot. We just couldn't. We realised the enormity of what we were trying to achieve. He says, but then Celtic got their noses in front and we couldn't get back. And Walter Smith has said on countless occasions, maybe he stuck with the tried and trusted for so long and he should have changed it. Well, if Celtic's players right now don't realise the enormity of trying to win 10, they only have to look back at the last team that tried to win 10 and couldn't do it. They shot their bolt.
Listen, I think if you were to draw an observation from Saturday, what you might say just now is that Rangers look hungrier to stop the 10 than Celtic do to go and win the 10. Now, we all know that there's an extra element that goes with this campaign. There's a layer of pressure with what you're trying to do, but at the same time, I still think, we're talking about the first quarter of the season. I think Rangers won the game. They won the game comfortably. They won the game at Celtic Park in December comfortably. They were unlucky in the League Cup. There are lessons that need to be learned at Celtic Park, and you have to go away, you have to reflect on it, and you have to look at where you're going wrong and be prepared to make the changes. Now, there has been disruption. I think there's been a whole host of problems in the build-up to this game with all the personnel issues and COVID issues and the issues that were going on in terms of team selection and how difficult it was to train. But I think you have to go away and analyse where and why is the lack of hunger and the lack of urgency. It seems to be very flat at the minute. And I think in some sense you think that Celtic have been getting away with it up until now this season because the results have maybe been papering over the cracks that we've seen. They still have time to turn it around. I would think it's far too early for anyone to be saying that the title's over and Rangers are in the driving seat. But what you're seeing just now is that there's very much a genuine challenge on now for the title, and Celtic must know that they need to get a grip of it, and they need to make the changes that are evident, and the need for them. They need to address it just now.
Tony Holton says, one game, listen to yourself, it's hilarious. I think, Tony, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not so much an overreaction from... Well, it's not one game. But
you look, the last 3 games, Rangers have been the far better side against Celtic, no question.
Absolutely.
It's not just one game.
Let me put it in perspective for you. We have people on here calling for his head. There are people on here saying Neil Lennon is tactically inept. Was he tactically inept when he came in and, salvaged the team from the Brendan I Love Celtic Rodgers? No, was the answer. He managed to steer them to the ship through. Was he tactically inept when he managed to get some half-decent European results? When Brendan Rodgers was at Celtic, he would actually still attack. Roughie, we were there watching him in Paris, watching them in Barcelona attack when they were getting absolutely battered. There wasn't a plan B. I think the great thing about the Old Firm games, Tam, is one day you're a dud, the next minute you're a tactical genius. And I've witnessed that over the last couple of years and beyond.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question in that, but Tony's saying there it's one game. Rangers, the last 2 games at Parkhead have been the better side and deservedly won. Let's be honest, Celtic, they battered Celtic in the League Cup final. They did.
Yeah,
they were very fortunate. Celtic, I thought he won the game. And so it's not just been one game. I think the signs have been there, and the proof's in the pudding with the last few results. So I think if Celtic, the fans don't believe that Rangers are a genuine threat this season, then they need to get their head out the sand, because Rangers, for me, are the better side. They're the better side at the minute, and Celtic need to do something, whether that's a change of formation, a change of manager, who knows? But they need to do something to stop the momentum that Rangers have got at the minute.
Tam Black says, lack of hunger, because Lennon said it himself. Some players don't want to be there. These players bringing their team down, however, and he's still playing them. Listen, sooner or later, Roughie, a manager gets to a point where he said, well, if I'm going to save my own neck, the buck stops with me. I'm going to boot out the players who don't want to play. There are some players, I think, at Celtic with an agenda for their own aims. And their own career and their own future. And if it was me, I would be sitting down there saying to them, listen, you can either shape up or ship out. I've said it before. There are some players who are playing for themselves.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if that meeting's been held already. Neil Lennon's already come out and told everybody what he thinks. I'm sure in-house that would have got them all in a dressing room. It would obviously put it blank to them. And that makes them think who they think he knows who they are. So then they've got to have a second thoughts about, is it me or is it him or who is it? And then you find it out, But I think the only thing that Neil Lennon can take out of that game, and Alison touched on it earlier, they were 4 players short of a first team. Now, that's not an excuse to get beat, but if you're a manager, you've got to say to yourself, well, I had 4 top players who didn't play in that game. If they played, would we have been any better? And you've got to bank on saying, yeah, we would have been better. I thought Rangers were at full strength. I don't think they'd anybody left out that wasn't going to be in the team. So he'll be saying to himself, well, if Rangers had taken 4 of their first team players out, would they have been as good as what they were? And that's, as a manager, things that will be going through his head. But the proof will be in the pudding when the 4 of them come back and the 4 of them are playing. They've still got to go out and win games.
Well, I mentioned the games that Rangers have coming up, and Alison mentioned as well Aberdeen, St Mirren, Motherwell and Hibs at Easter Road as well. So that's the next 4 games for Celtic. Can't wait to see Tam's prediction on that weekend at Easter Road, because he'll be there for him. He'll be there for Hibs TV. David Fraser says the league will be won before January. Again, lots of predictions on it. Lots of positive things, I think. Lots of Rangers fans on there with positives about the people who played in the game, and I think to a man, Rangers deservedly composed, worthy of their 2-0 victory, and a lot of positives from players who played there. And let's not forget, just a little word I think it's right to point out, Kamara looked the real deal as well. Tam, £50,000, and I thought he was excellent.
He was absolutely fantastic. I mean, he was so composed on the ball. He's a terrific footballer. I mean, you look at him, he's obviously playing for Finland as well, international at the minute. Rangers get serious money for him if he keeps playing the way he's playing. There's no doubt about it. So composed. You know, he's never rushed, never flustered, keeps the ball, plays great wee 1-2s into the box. I was really impressed with him at Easter Road when Rangers played Hibs. So, no, I thought he was the best player in the park, Peter, to be honest. I thought Kamara was outstanding. I thought he ran the game for Rangers. So, they've got a real asset in their hands there at Ibrox.
Yep. Okay, that's the Old Firm game. Here's how the result fared in among all the other fixtures from the weekend. Celtic 0, Rangers 2, and of course Dundee United Aberdeen. We were hoping for a goal fest. It didn't quite materialise. A few penalty shouts here and there, but nevertheless. Elsewhere, great for Stevie May. I'm absolutely delighted for Stevie starting to score goals for St Johnstone. They got a good win over Hamilton by 5-3. That was an absolute goal fest as well. Nothing for you up at Dingwall, Tam, between Ross County and Hibs, and a good win for Kilmarnock, and St Mirren Motherwell fell foul of COVID-19 once again. Positives. Got to mention Stevie May, Roughie, because at times it looked as if with that injury at Preston, it looked as if he was never going to get back to the heady heights of why everybody was raving about him first time around at St Johnstone. But he scored a couple of good goals.
Yeah, he did, and his work rate was good as well. And any player will tell you when you've been out with a bad injury, the doubt's always in the back of your head, never mind everybody else's head, whether you can get back to where you were. And I think we all saw the ability that he had before he got the move. But it's good as a striker, you know, to get goals like that, you know, and then people start believing in him. And you could see the rest of his teammates were happy that he was the one that was scoring the goals, and that's always good.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only did he score 2, he actually set up one for Craig Conway. Craig Conway's a good player, Tam. I like him. I mean, Callum Davison mentioned to me that he was confident the team were playing good enough football that there's nothing majorly wrong with the team and nothing major to worry about.
Yeah, Peter, I said that in the show on Friday. I think St Johnstone have not been far away. They've not conceded more than 2 goals all season. So you can tell they're pretty solid at the back. And I thought they were really good against Celtic. And to be honest with you, they've not been far away. And Stevie May, I think the goals against Brecon last week have gave him a little shot in the arm. He's needed a few goals. He's been desperate for a goal. And you've seen the confidence coming back on Saturday with a couple of great goals. But Craig Conway, great career down in England. Obviously, we know him from up here, from United and Dundee United, won the Scottish Cup with them. But he's went down to England, played with a few big clubs, Cardiff and teams like that, Wigan down the road. And his free kick was outstanding, you know, top corner. Stevie May cut one back for him as well. So for him to get 2 goals as well was great. And Callum Davidson, for not being able to buy a goal, they've now scored 12 goals in the last 2 games. So, I mean, it just shows you that's football, isn't it? He's probably been banging his head against the wall, but now the goals are flying in.
And I meant to say to you, Tam, because obviously you didn't get any goals, even with Hibs playing with 11 men. Did you just show at the end of the game the 1972 League Cup final and analyse that, or was there a reason why you couldn't beat 10 men?
Yeah, Peter, it was one of those games. I mean, disappointing for Hibs. I mean, there was never any threat from Ross County whatsoever, really. Hibs missed. I mean, you've probably seen the highlights. Missed countless chances. Martin Boyle missed 2 1-on-1s, hit the post, you know, one off the line. It was total dominance. I think Hibs had 28 shots on goal and just couldn't score. One of those games, and Hibs will play a lot worse this season and win. So I think they've just got to take the point, take the positives, come back down the road and get ready for Kilmarnock next week on the plastic.
Yeah, on the plastic, of course. Kelly, a good win on the artificial turf against Livingston as well. And you couldn't separate Dundee United and Aberdeen, Roughie, which culminates in you, me and Tam having the worst ever set of predictions ever since this show started 9 years ago. And we've done it with a few people, Roughie, but we've never had a situation where each of us scored 2 points.
Yeah.
Well, the first course of our predictions.
The first thing after the Saturday night, I knew how bad I was, and the first thing I had to do was check, see how bad everybody else was. And it's one of these ones where we'll live to fight another day.
Yeah, it was absolutely dire. Robert Richardson says, "Whereas Darren Celtic will win Jackson today." And that's the great that's the great thing about it. When you get to a situation where you predict any game, if you get it wrong, you've got to hold your hands up. I mean, it was brilliant, Tam. You missed it. We were doing a live show from the grass just in front
I
of me.
caught a bit on YouTube. I've seen it.
Well, I have to say to you, just as we were
great.
about to start, Roughie actually, preempted it. There's two boys there with what can only be described as the same dog that Oliver Reed had in Oliver, and this bullseye looked mean, right?
Yeah.
And Roughie walking across clearly thinks it's the East End of Glasgow. It's two boys with a dog. They're looking over Celtic Park. They'll be Celtic fans. So the boy turns round to Roughie and says, "What do you think today, Roughie? What do you think the score will be?" And he goes, 4-0 Celtic. And the two boys turned round. And I thought they were going to set the dog on them. Yeah. They were Rangers fans, and they were not happy with you, Roughie.
Yeah, I should have learned the lesson when before I shouted out the quote when the boy shouted to the dog, "Come here, Satan."
It was good fun. The two boys were good patter from them as well. So it's fantastic. But you listen, that's the joy of it with the predictions. You look at the games, you see if you actually go to the games and watch how the teams play, you try and get an analysis on it. Just on the back of that, I know that Dave Cormack has been asking the SPFL if they could actually have a test game again, this time against Celtic coming up, Alison. Apparently, the government just said a polite no from the government. And of course, yeah, I mean, I it's still lingering in the background. I think we're forgetting about it. But the longer this goes on, Ali, Wales has gone into shutdown. But the longer it goes on, and you wonder what's going to happen with Scotland over the next couple of weeks of COVID, people are not getting away from the fact that financially this is crippling the game.
Without question, absolutely without question. But right now, with the R number still continuing to rise, and I think you're seeing the fragility of schools coming into the fold over, or has come back into the public domain this week. I just don't think there is a chance of anyone getting fans back in, and I think we can argue about it and we can point out the vagaries and we can point out the discrepancies when you're allowed to go elsewhere. I think I'd seen people posting photographs of parks and M&Ds and places like that this week and saying, well, how come we can congregate in these open air places but we can't get maybe 10,000 or 5,000 people into a stadium? And we've talked about this for the last 3 or 4 months, but I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. And I think what you need is the government to get involved in terms of a financial package, because there will be some clubs for whom the longer this goes on, the more dangerous it becomes in terms of affecting their livelihood.
St Mirren against Motherwell is a case in point, which I think will be a regular occurrence. Tam, is when players actually are testing positive, suddenly a game has to be called off because you can't field enough of your first team players. Maurice Ross actually mentioned, he's the coach at Motherwell, that he thought that Motherwell should have been awarded the points because St Mirren couldn't actually play enough of what they would call a team that was capable of making a competition of it. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think he's got a point, Peter. I think that Motherwell, I think that's the second game that Motherwell have been involved in that's been called off. I think for no fault of their own. They're now going to have a fixture pile-up. They're now going to be playing, a load of games in a short amount of time through no fault of their own. But I think if you're going to do that, then you're going to set a precedent. And can you imagine if it was a Celtic Rangers Old Firm game or involving them and they've got to give them the points? It would be absolute pandemonium. So while I agree with Morris, sometimes you've got to look at it and maybe give teams points. Opens up a can of worms in the whole title race and the teams at the bottom and everything else. So I don't know what the right answer is, Peter. I've not got a correct answer. You could look at it both ways, but I just think that if you keep calling games off, this season is going to run on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I think sorry.
On you go, Ali.
I was going to say, I think it would be very harsh. I think it's different if the club comes out and says we can't fulfil this because we don't have enough players. But when the authorities get involved, I think it was the health board who said that the game couldn't go ahead. I think that's slightly different. I think you should always have the opportunity to play and compete for the points if you had a squad. If St Mirren could have argued, well, we'll cobble together a squad with some of the kids and we're prepared to play it, we'll go out and play it, but the health board are saying, well, you're not allowed to play it. I think it'd be very unfair then to penalise teams by taking the points off them.
Yeah, it's a good point. It has happened before that it was actually the health board that intervened.
But surely Kilmarnock were told to put a team out the other week there with 7 youth players in it. So why was St Mirren not told to put 7 youth players in their team?
I think the health board got involved in it. Yeah. I think it comes down to a health board coming in and saying so many of these players have trained together, and there's a question mark over whether or not you're going to transmit the virus to other teams or transmit it.
That happened a couple of weeks ago as well, where they got involved, Roughie. Again, it's a good point you make. I mean, do you start forcing teams to play whoever's not been in close contact? I think then you start to diminish the product that you're watching, especially with so much at stake. I think for relegation and obviously trying to win the title in the Premiership. It's open to debate. I'm sure everybody's got their thoughts on it. Gordon McFadden said, how did Partick get on, Roughie? He was just wondering because he hasn't heard the classic statement that comes out week in, week out on the programme. I mean, if there are Celtic fans out there and Rangers fans angry with the way Neil Lennon answered the defeat against Rangers, spare a thought for Roughie, because Roughie, for the last 6 or 7 weeks, in fact, last season all the way to the end, until they get involved in their jiggery-pokery with the WhatsApp, they were saying we're playing magnificent football, but we got pumped. And Roughie, what happened at the weekend?
No, I have to hold my hands up and say we didn't hit the heady heights of what we had been. We were minus our 3 strikers as well, so we had chances. I have to say, I thought Clyde were very well organised. Danny Lennon had them very well organised. I thought a draw was probably the fairer result, but we didn't deserve to win it. But that's what happens when you don't have your top players available, as we've been discussing with the Celtic game. You know, you just have to get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Danny Lennon there had his players well organised, and you're saying Ian McCall was tactically inept. I'm just trying to relate to what you were saying earlier with Celtic and Rangers. I'm just trying to see.
I never said that. I thought both teams, it was a good end-to-end game. If you were there, both teams had chances to win the game, but they got their chance and we never took ours.
I'm only winding you up, Roughie. Anyway, I'm just looking here, and I think, just as ever, we always get a nice little line in from our journalists who are working away in the background. All 42 professional football league clubs will be consulted on contingency plans for another incomplete season. The governing body aims to formulate a strategy for titles, promotions and relegation in the event of coronavirus-related curtailment. Clubs will be asked a series of questions regarding their views. However, only if there is a consensus of similar opinion is it likely a formal ballot will take place. In late July, the SPFL board lost a vote, as you know, to take control of the season should there have been a repeat of the COVID-19 shutdown. The plans for consultation with clubs emerged after all 42 SPFL sides held a meeting on Monday morning. Now, Ali, that basically is a call to say, well, if you don't want us as a board to decide it, what are you going to do to avoid the madness of what happened last season?
I'm just amazed it's taken us this long to get there. I think it's a question we were all asking months ago, even before the season started, that we all needed to know that there had to be some kind of consensus among clubs before a ball was kicked, so that there was transparency when and if COVID does interrupt the season. So, yep, I agree with what you're saying. It's just it's a matter now of trying to find a consensus and agreement of opinion, which will be, I'm sure, will come easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
love a
here's
vote. Let's have a vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a vote.
Vote.
Yeah. Hold on. Hold on a sec. Let's have a WhatsApp group first before we do anything hasty.
The
Let's
PLZ.
have a change up. I need everybody. I'm just checking the rules here, Ali, on WhatsApp. Everybody reserves the right to change their mind on their vote. Anyway, just in case you have forgotten about it, I would like to, at this moment, say to you, you might even disagree with our reporter Gabriel Antoniazzi. He's come up with the team of the week.
Benjamin Siegrist kept United in the game with 7 saves, maintaining his clean sheet. James Tavernier led his team to victory and delivered a fantastic ball for the opener. Connor Goldson by name, Goldson by nature, as the centre-half scored both goals in the Old Firm. Alex Jakoviti cleared Kevin Nesbitt's effort off the line to ensure County's 10 men earned a point. Borna Barisic had the Celtic right flank in his pocket all day and won all of his aerial battles as well. Chris Burke scored one and assisted another in Killy's 3-1 win. Glenn Kamara was the best player on the park in surely his strongest performance in a Rangers jersey. Craig Conway scored 2 and assisted 1, including a stunning free kick. Ronan Hughes may have been on the losing side but scored twice, despite starting on the Accies bench. Ryan Hedges' performance deserved more. He created several chances throughout. Stevie May is back amongst the goals, his brace taking his tally to 5 for the week.
Yeah, to be fair, there might have been a few more Rangers players in there, Tam, but we'll just announce that Gabriel picked the side, not us.
I thought he was just going to put the full Rangers team in there, to be honest.
Well, that's what I thought,
I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's put a few Accies boys in there, but no, I've got to give it to Gabs. I don't think there was any really Hibs players that deserved to be in there, so I'll give him it this week. Good team.
Then. And of course, you started at Billy Hutchison saying, Gavin, stay off the glue, because you can't even remember his name, Roughie. See what you started on this LinkedIn programme. Callum Dillery says, no Celtic players in that team of the week there. Well, to be honest with you, we were going to put some in, but apparently, news of that was leaked, so we decided to withdraw them just to keep it all safe. Who is the mole? There you are. I wonder who it was. I wonder how many people are asking the question now. Did me telling my best mate about I'm playing? I mean, you can't fault people for releasing the team half the time. It's unbelievable, but it always goes to incredible heights when it's an Old Firm game. Anyway, there is good news on this programme for Scotland fans, and the reason I mentioned that, the good news is we've looks as if we're going to be this week in the FIFA rankings up 4 places. Now, I usually treat the FIFA rankings with a pinch of salt, but to be perfectly honest with you, Ruffy, if we can get 3 good results coming up in the next month, we might squeeze into pot 2 for the World Cup draw, which would be phenomenal.
It'd be wonderful. I thought that's what the Nations Cup was all about. I thought that's where you were going to get most of your ranking points and you jump up. But certainly, yeah, if you can get into that pot 2, you're obviously not facing two of the top sides, and as what's been happening in the last 8 years. So yeah, that'd be a massive bonus. But our next 2 games are. Next 3 games are away from home, so that'll be a big test for the team.
Yeah, and of course the good thing is I think 2 of them are winnable games. The Scotland one in Serbia is the most important one coming up, Alison, which we are all hoping that somehow we can steal a win.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. If you could come out of that triumphant and take the country back to a major tournament for the first time in 22 or 23 years, by the time we would get there, it would be an extraordinary achievement. I would temper that, however, by just drawing your attention to how challenging it will actually be to go and win it. I think they're an excellent side, and I think it will be a hugely difficult job. But I think you're enhanced at least by a bit of confidence, a bit of belief. The fact that you're going into it having gone in and won those 3 games last week, you've got an 8-game unbeaten streak. I think it enhances your hand when you're going into games with a wee bit of confidence like that.
Yeah, Ali, is your glass half full or half empty now? I'm just checking. Just as I'm getting a little bit positive about Scotland, you bring me back down to earth with the old grumpy face that you're sitting next to there.
No,
What's one?
I believe we've got a chance now. Obviously,
Oh,
they get beat. They get
He
beat
says
1-0. Beat 1-0 with Hungary at home. 2 each with Turkey. They can't be that invincible. You know, they're the kind of team that will go there and score and think 1-0's enough. But we've now proved that we've got a goal in us as well. So it'll be interesting. You know, I think it'll be really tight. Yeah, and a couple of shots.
One. don't hope we don't score two. I'm in trouble.
Exactly. Listen, I'm going to read out a couple of other messages we've got here. And thanks to everyone who's joined us on Facebook, Twitter, and of course on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Brian McNair says Milan and Aberdeen defeats for Celtic and they'll go into meltdown. A point of view from Brian, only time will tell. Callum Reynolds says Serbia's strengths are going forward and weaker at the back. It's opposite from Scotland, so you never know if we set up right, Callum. I share that little bit of optimism that you said there. Neil Gray says, Peter, what's your thoughts on the FA not charging Jordan Pickford for his blatant assault on Virgil van Dijk? I don't know about you, but I'm so glad VAR is not in Scotland at the moment, Tam. That challenge for me was worthy of a red card, whether he meant it or not.
No, 100% red card, Peter. And goalkeepers get away with that all the time. They come flying out their goal when they just think because they're going to protect themselves. You know, they can come flying out with their boots and their elbows, and it's an absolute shocker. It's a leg breaker. You know, if he's very, very fortunate. I know he's got a bad injury, but he could have snapped his leg there. You know, he's come out flying 2-footed. And it was a definite red card. And Liverpool, what a massive blow that is for them. You know, to miss him for 5 or 6 months possibly, it kills them.
I think if Roughie had been the goalkeeper for Everton, Virgil van Dijk would be fit and available to play next week because, as everyone knows, Roughie never come off his line. Roughie would not even have made the challenge. He'd have said, Gordon McQueen, go and sort that out, will you? The big man looks as if he could score. A lot of people obviously want to talk about that. Listen, there are 1,000,001 little subplots going on about tackles and people getting sent off or should have been sent off. A Morelos challenge, a Morelos slap in the head, a Scott Brown challenge, and things like that. There is absolutely, at this point, from my point of view, I thought John Beaton Allison had a good game. He had nothing majorly contentious to deal with. I don't think he was a factor in Rangers winning that game by 2-0. He was just in the background making decisions. There was nothing controversial unless you're going to tell me different.
That's exactly what you would say. That there wasn't a decision made or not made that had any influence or any bearing on the outcome of that game. I think Alfredo Morelos trod a fine line at some points in the first half, just with a bit of niggly exchanges with people, but there's nothing there that detracted from how that game panned out.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart Carruthers says the ref had a good game. Stuart, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think people are nitpicking and looking for problems that just weren't there. Rangers were the better side, the better players on the day, and they won it. And as Steven Gerrard, I think, rightly said, and it's something I think that a lot of Rangers fans will be happy with, the smarter ones who last season looked at it and thought there's just a wee bit of over-celebrating a win in December. Steven Gerrard came out at the end of it, and I listened to his after-match interview, and I thought, he's grasped it. There's humility. There's keeping a lid on it. It's only 3 points. There's a long way to go. And by the same token, for Celtic fans, they'll be looking at Neil Lennon and saying, okay, what are you going to do about the underperformers? What are you going to do to try and get this train back on track? And these are all the questions that we will get answered as this unfolds. Let's hope it gets a chance to unfold all the way to the end of the season. But it's been great with the football. If you are a football fanatic, I have to tell you, I ran into one of my old friends. I'm going to give him a mention, Roger, who works in a restaurant. He's a big West Ham fan. And I when you get the takeaway from the restaurant, Roughie, I just opened the door to him. He was handing it over and I said, what a game. What a goal to equalise. Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, 3-0 up. And you'll never believe it, Roughie. I'm watching it. It's 3-0. I fall asleep. I wake up. because I thought Tottenham were going to win it. I fall asleep, I wake up, it's still 3-0, and I think, God, this game, will I turn it over? They go 3-1, 3-2, and then Lanzini hits a raker from 20 yards into the roof of the net. That's what I love about football.
Well, I hope that documentary's still following Spurs, because I'd like to have seen the dressing room after that game to see what kind of reaction there was. Because to be 3-0 up with a quality team like that and to let that happen. But you're right, it was a wonderful goal. What a strike. Fantastic.
Absolutely. It was great to see Moise, as you know, Tam, big pal of mine. It was great to see him jumping up and down. He certainly was fast, and he jumped up in the air, and I thought, wow, never really got that height when he was a centre-half at Celtic. so at his age, it was still great for him.
No, brilliant. What a great result for West Ham. I mean, I don't know if this is a fact, but Jose Mourinho losing a 3-goal lead, don't think that's ever happened, maybe in his career. You know, he's usually shuts up shop and parks the bus and wins the game. But I loved when David Moyes, you seen him celebrating. I loved it when he gave that one. Yeah, it's just when you've seen nothing doing, you give him that one. I like that. I just like it. I like it. Yeah. So well done to Moyes and West Ham.
Absolutely. I was just wondering, Tam could have been Tam could have easily been a member of one of those radical groups, Roughie, couldn't you? He always likes a wee noise up. And Art Monty has just said, "Oh, Peter, you're getting old. A wee old man's nap." Well, to be honest with you, there's no tunnel or the Mardi Gras or the warehouse to go to, or even Henry Africa's now. It's every nightclub shut down, so you may as well have a wee nap, Ali. It's as simple as that. Let's have a look at the old scores, because it was weekend. We got it wrong big time, and I have to apologise to more than a few people. I'm still 2 points ahead of Roughie, but Tam, you're on 102. You must be happy still with your lead, but there's a long way to go before we even get to the end of this year.
Yeah, as Steven Gerrard, I'm going to stay humble, a wee bit of humility about myself, and say that I will probably win the league, that title, by about 20 points.
Well, that is Roughie. That I'm telling you right now, we are going to take that quote and we are going to record it. That Roughie. I can tell you our producer Gordon is taking that quote right now and now recording it for the later part of May when we see who's going to be at the top.
No humility here. I want to absolutely humiliate
Yeah, why not? The loser takes everybody out. The loser takes everybody out for a meal, Ali. So hopefully, Ali, by the time we get a loser, hopefully we're all able to go to a restaurant again, because that's the key for all the football fans that I feel so sorry for that can't get to these games. And somebody made a great point, Ali, which I think goes back to what Dave Cormack was saying as we're about to finish. You can go into an enclosed area on an aeroplane, oversubscribed flights, but you can't go into Pataudry and have social distancing for 1,000 fans. I think it's wrong.
I think we need to try and find a way that both protects the public and is respectful about the dangers of the virus, whilst also trying to get some fans back in, even if it is only a percentage of the stadium. If there's a time slot when you come in, if you can have sanitary disposals at every entrance, if you can have a staggered entrance, a staggered exit, if people can agree then still to wear masks, it would be nice to think that there could be a common sense approach that works for everyone, that gets fans back in, but also is still very mindful of and appreciative of just how dangerous the virus can be.
And just in case Tam McManus does get above his station, Ronnie Porter has just said, Tam Cowan, you couldn't even spell humble. So he doesn't even know who you are, Tam, at the best of times. So there you go. Thanks to Ronnie Porter, who's clearly absolutely crushed Tam McManus for thinking he's Tam Cowan. Anyway, just before we go, there is a competition running at the moment. Like, share and follow and subscribe, and you could win this fabulous package. You could win all these fantastic prizes by entering our competition. If you like what you see, you can share it with your friends and you can follow us for all the latest breaking football news. Join the football family at PLZ Soccer on Facebook and you could win all these fantastic prizes. Nice wee early Christmas present for somebody. There's an iPad in there, as well as a Pele and the Maradona shirt, and of course some icons from our Hall of Fame. All you have to do is share the programme with your friends, like it, and of course subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. And fingers crossed, one of you could be the lucky winner in our competition. Thanks to the thousands of people who have been posting their messages on Facebook. Thanks to the YouTubers who've been watching the programme and sticking with us, and also on Twitter as well. Join us tomorrow if you can, from Roughie, from Tam, Alison and myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed.